All wings report in.
HouseDog, standing by.
MotherGoose, standing by.
Lock S-foils in attack position. Animal Squadron ready for battle.
Hello there, and welcome to Animal Squadron. I am your host, HouseDog, and with me, as always, my favorite person to fly around the galaxy with, MotherGoose. How's it going, man?
I am doing really good, and I am so excited for this episode. How are you?
I have to say I'm more than excited. I wrote 5 pages of notes for this one.
Oh, more than excited. Okay. Well, I wrote a lot more than 14 notes from last time, so who's more excited?
You know, you're doubling every episode.
If this keeps up, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to catch up to me.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
Probably not. No.
Probably not, but you bring so much to the conversation. Without you, I wouldn't get half of my crazy theories.
That is true, and I do have some more theories for today.
I don't know if I have any theories for today. Actually, that's not true. I do have theories for today, and I have a lot of thoughts.
I do too, and so I don't think my theories are like crazy like last time or the last couple times. They're more kind of like sweet or like headcanons, I guess. Not Grandmaster of the Jedi C-3PO crazy.
But wait, MotherGoose, are you admitting to us now on the Animal Squadron podcast that you're writing fanfic in your dorm room?
No, I am not writing fan fiction.
If I find fan fiction of Darth Jar Jar and Grandmaster C-3PO having a secret relationship, I know who it was. Oh
no, now they're dating. This just went way further than it was last time.
I like it, and I want it.
Well, if one of our listeners wants to go ahead and write some fan fiction, you can send that to our Gmail, animalsquadron@gmail.com. Again, that is animalsquadron@gmail.com.
Oh boy. I think we just need to get into it.
We've opened the floodgates. Let's just start.
Great, but there is a caveat to this episode. MotherGoose, would you like to share what that is?
Yes, so as we've stated, not only on this podcast, but on multiple other podcasts, this is both HouseDog and I's favorite Star Wars film. So there is a very good chance that we're going to have to break this up into 2 parts. So, but that all just depends on how long the recording goes. We're sitting recording now. We don't really know. So just be expecting that. If it says part 1 somewhere in the title, there'll be a part 2 coming out very shortly.
Almost instantaneous, I bet.
Almost instantaneous.
Okay, great. We've got everything out of the way. Let's get into it, because boy, am I excited for this episode.
Me too. Okay, do you have anything to say about the opening crawl? Because
I do.
Okay,
me
you
too. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Oh man, we're like 2 kids in a candy shop at this point.
2 kids in a candy shop. Why don't you start us off?
It's like we're back. It's 2005 again. The movie's premiering, and we're there.
We are there. Oh, I know we said this in our first episode, but this was both HouseDog and I's very first Star Wars film that we got to watch in theaters. So it holds a really special place in both of our hearts.
It definitely does. Shout out to my dad. You're still pretty cool.
Shout out to my dad.
Dads are awesome.
Dads are awesome.
Okay, so the opening crawl. I noticed it says that there are heroes on both sides and that evil is everywhere. And I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what that means. Well, I understand that evil is everywhere, but what about the heroes on both sides?
Okay, so I think that's referring to the fact that a lot of the separatists are good people. They are just, like, obviously there are evil separatists, but we got to remember that there were thousands of planets, and a lot of them were just unhappy with the Republic, and they were looking for a way out, and they saw their chance, and they took it. I really love the prequels because it's not just a black and white situation. especially with the Clone Wars, there is a lot of gray areas where, sometimes the Republic is in the wrong. And, I mean, I would say generally the Republic is the good guys, but a lot of people in the Separatists are just fighting for freedom.
You're right. Now that you mentioned that about the heroes on both sides, I'm so glad you brought up Clone Wars because I have so many Clone Wars notes. Now that I think about it,
good.
you have Lux Bonteri, who's a Separatist from the Clone Wars. His mom leads one of the Separatist planets in the show, and we meet him. And now I understand. See, it's like I said earlier, without you, I wouldn't get half of my ideas.
Exactly. We are the dream team.
The dream team, much like Darth Jar Jar and Grandmaster C-3PO.
Much like those two, yes. Okay, so my note, I did want to talk about that, but my other note is that just in general, this is one of the best opening crawls. It's just so good. And it leads... Wait, real quick. Do you have anything else to say about the opening crawl?
No, keep going.
It leads into the best opening scene in all of Star Wars, and nobody can change my mind on that. It is just so amazing getting to see the Battle of Coruscant.
Right. Do you have any other crawl notes?
I don't. Do you?
No, that was all for the crawl for me. That was the only thing that stuck out at me because I didn't understand it. But now I do.
Cool. Okay, go team. So, did you watch the 2D Clone Wars?
The old one?
Yeah.
It started out as a miniseries. It was made by the guy who made Samurai Jack.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
I own them.
I may have to borrow those someday. I really love that series. If I know a lot of times it gets overshadowed by the 3D Clone Wars series, which is also amazing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot today. But the 2D Clone Wars series or miniseries is just so amazing. And one of my favorite parts about it is it leads directly into Episode 3. We get to see Palpatine get captured by Grievous.
No, I love that series. It's awesome. And without that series, we wouldn't have General Grievous. Because that's where he actually came from.
Yeah. Which blew my mind when I found that fact out.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't know it was a few years ago that I learned, but...
Well, that's where his cough also comes from, is from that series.
Right.
Which I won't spoil that series, even though it's been out for literally like a decade.
Yes.
But you should definitely go watch it if you haven't, because it is amazing.
So good.
If you enjoyed Samurai Jack whenever you were a kid, or even if you didn't like Samurai Jack, just the art, the way the show's drawn, and that Clone Wars is more all about what's not being said than what is being said. In my opinion.
Yeah.
It's all very visual, which is how I remember Samurai Jack being as a kid. I didn't really get into Samurai Jack a whole lot, but I definitely thought it was cool.
Yeah, and the art styles are incredibly similar.
Well, it was made by the same person.
Yeah. Okay, so, a nice little callback is Obi-Wan and Anakin are flying through the sky battle, and General Cody says, set S-foils into attack position.
That's actually not Cody, that's Oddball, because he blows up in about 10 seconds.
Dang it. I knew. I was like 50% sure it was Cody, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to say it with confidence. I'm sure it was Cody. I should have double checked.
Nope, that was Oddball. That was Oddball, and Oddball literally blows up about 5 seconds after that.
Dang it. One day I will make it through an episode without saying anything wrong.
Hey, we're here to have fun, not to be right. Even though
that
I
is
am
true.
Right.
I believe you, yes.
So what
but I don't know.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just thought it was a really nice callback to episode 4.
Yes, I noticed it as well. But with the very beginning of the movie, from the pan down onto the Republic cruiser, last time we saw Anakin and Obi-Wan, they weren't very in sync.
Right.
It was constantly Obi-Wan having to remind Anakin to slow down, to think, to wait for his lead, to remember his training. And right away, before we even know that it's Obi-Wan and Anakin, you can just tell by, who else would be in these two ships right at the start of the movie.
Right.
Just by their flying, everything is in sync from the moment we see those two ships.
Right.
And that carries through the entire... I wrote it down a whole lot in my notes. I'll bring it up every time I come across it. But right from the start, we see them completely in sync just from their piloting.
Yes. Yeah. And it really, visually shows the audience that they have become brothers.
Right, completely.
In episode 2, Obi-Wan was still Anakin's master. Right? Anakin wasn't he hadn't taken the trials yet.
He never takes the trials.
Right. Right. Anyway, my point to it is they're on more equal grounds, even though at this point, Obi-Wan is a Jedi Master and Anakin is just a Jedi Knight. It's less of a I'm your boss kind of a situation and more like we're friends, we're brothers.
Right, I completely agree, which is a great segue into my first do you remember this line of this episode? The juxtaposition of Obi-Wan saying this is going to be easy versus Anakin saying, oh, this is going to be fun.
Right.
Whenever the buzz droids hasn't even happened yet. It's just the enemy droid ships flying at them.
Yeah.
Just how they both view the situation differently.
Right, because, it's already been established that Obi-Wan isn't that comfortable of a flyer.
No, he hasn't been since episode 2.
Right, and on the other hand, Anakin is the best pilot in the galaxy.
I would argue one of, definitely.
One of, yeah.
But probably the best Jedi flyer we've ever seen.
Yes, without a doubt.
So,
now, are you ready to get to the buzz droids?
I'm almost there.
Okay, sorry. I didn't want to skip ahead of you.
No, it's okay. I just have so much to talk about this movie.
That's okay.
That's the problem. I think this is going to be a whole lot of me telling you to slow down and go back because I've literally, like I said, the first 12 minutes of this movie is my entire first page of notes.
Let's see.
When I said I had fun with this movie and went crazy with my note taking, I absolutely did.
Yeah, okay. I think first 12 minutes probably not quite a full page, but almost a full page for me.
So much happens very quickly in the start of this movie.
Right. Oh, and something I really wanted to point out is the events of this movie everything that happens takes place in 4 days.
That's a good thing to remember.
Yeah, and okay, maybe not everything, the very last couple ending shots showing where everyone is after, those might not be included in those 4 days, but basically everything.
Right, the meat and potatoes of this film happens in 4 days.
Right. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
So with Oddball, not Commander Cody.
Right, oddball.
We see all the clones starting to, be outgunned because there's just more droid fighters than there are them.
Right.
Anakin immediately wants to turn around and help him, and Obi-Wan says, wait, they've got their mission, we've got ours. And immediately Anakin snaps back to, okay, we have a goal, we have to go. Even though they're our friends, please watch Clone Wars. Please watch
Clone Wars. Which
this movie just does such a great job of. We see all the lessons from episode 1 and episode 2, which at the end of episode 2, Anakin and Qui-Gon butt heads again whenever they're on the gunship chasing down Dooku. Padme falls off. He basically says the same line in this movie, but this time Anakin respects his master. And like I said, they're just in sync now. They are that master and apprentice that what Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan had whenever we saw them at the height of their relationship.
Right. And so when you talk about that moment where Anakin's wanting to go back, it actually made me think of the argument they had when they first ran into Padme, and they were arguing over what their mission was and exactly what they were supposed to be doing.
Right.
Just another example of how far they've come.
No, it's great because I missed that one. And then once again, we have Anakin doing his patented spinning trick to get the missiles to blow up.
Yippee!
Hey, it's got to be a good move if it keeps working for him.
If it works, it works.
It must, because he's used it many, many times and he's still not dead.
Yeah, good for him. Maybe Obi-Wan needs to try it. I mean, I guess he never died in a... Well, we'll get to that later. I was going to say he never died in a spaceship, but... Which I really do want to talk about that here pretty soon, but that's a little later.
Okay. I'm at the buzz droids now. How do you feel about R4 being decapitated and thrown into space?
Okay.
Because I find it hilarious, sir.
Okay, I think it's hilarious too, but I'm also really mad because Obi-Wan just kind of sits there and lets R4 die. But then when the buzz droid gets on Anakin's ship and is going after R2, Obi-Wan's like, R2, go for the center of the buzz droid's eye. Like, why didn't he give R4 that advice? Like, obviously there were a lot more, but still could have gave him a little chance to fight back.
I don't think R4 had a chance. He's just a brown R2.
Just a brown... Isn't he red?
Like a maroon rust. I don't know what you'd call it.
Yeah, maroon rust. We'll go with that. Anyway...
It doesn't matter now. His head's in space above Coruscant, isn't it?
He's gone. Oh, well, actually, they were close. I mean, they were close enough to the gravity field to bring the ship down. His head might have descended back to Coruscant.
And now he works for Grandmaster 3PO?
That, or he got burned up in the atmosphere on his descent.
No, I think he plans to exact his revenge on his old master, Obi-Wan.
On his old master. With General Grievous's body. R4's head, General Grievous's body. You can send the fan art of that to our Gmail, animalsquadron@gmail.com.
I need a new co-host. I'm posting a want ad. You can use that same email to send in your resumes.
I checked, little do you know, I check the email more often. He's never gonna see those resumes.
All right, so they make it into General Grievous' ship. And
yes.
Immediately, Obi-Wan pops out of his speeder, or his Jedi Starfighter, excuse me, and just does like a front flip and immediately starts chopping up droids. And we see it again, the synchronization of whenever Anakin gets out of his starfighter, they're fighting back to back, just taking out these droids. And I'm not going to try to be poetic about it. It's just beautiful. There's no other word for that. Just seeing them fight together is beautiful because they know exactly what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are, as you said earlier, in sync. Not the boy band, just, you know what I mean.
They could have been a boy band if R4 had survived.
They could have been with frontman, Grandmaster of the Jedi, C-3PO.
Oh boy.
Again, fan art, animalsquadron@gmail.com.
I'm getting rid of you. But then their dialogue of figuring out what to do next, and Obi-Wan's line, "Spring the trap." I love it. It's so fun because they just look at each other, and Obi-Wan looks at Anakin like, "You know what we're gonna do. You know exactly what we're gonna do. We're here to save the Chancellor, but let's go spring the trap. We already know Dooku's here. We know Grievous is here. Let's go spring the trap and just get on into it."
Get rid of him, yeah.
Do you remember what it was like to see Grievous for the first time? Because he walks in, we get that one shot of him until he comes back here in like 5 minutes of him walking onto the bridge of his ship. Do you remember what it was like to see General Grievous for the first time in theaters?
I really loved it. Like, I thought it was really cool, but it also scared me a little bit. Not like Darth Maul scared me as a kid, but there was still a little terror with General Grievous's entrance.
Right, he's got those cat eyes, the weird cough, the creepy voice. Is he a machine? Is he a man? Is he an alien?
Right.
What is
There
he?
was just so much unknown at the moment. Or at the time, I guess.
There was. The imagery in this movie is absolutely beautiful. Like we've already called back to episode 1 and 2 so many times, but we get an almost shot-for-shot remake of the episode 1 scene of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan outside of the meeting room.
Right.
Where the destroyers roll up, where now it's Obi-Wan and Anakin in front of the elevator when the destroyers roll up.
Yep.
That shot always gets me because we've come so far to see we're still in the same place we were 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah,
not more than 10 years at this time. Not much longer, but a bit longer than 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's 13, because I think from 1 to 2 it's 10 years, and then I think from 2 to 3 it's 3 years. But I might be wrong on that.
It sounds like a close enough timeline. It works for me.
Thanks. So, they're in the elevator.
They are.
And, I mean, obviously it stops, and Anakin just right away is like, let's just get out. Just starts cutting the ceiling.
Right? Just cuts a hole in the ceiling. Is like, well, if this isn't working, we gotta get out of here somehow.
Right.
I love it. Anakin's Anakin.
Same.
You can't not love him.
Anakin is Anakin. Well,
Right, but that's...
at least at this moment.
No, that's great, because then Obi-Wan makes the comms to R2, and we get a shot of the hangar bay again. But in the corner there, you see Obi-Wan's starfighter again, and on the side, if this is another like Clone Wars thing, I only know this because I watch Clone Wars, but you can see little paintings on the side of Obi-Wan's starfighter of all the ships that he's destroyed. It's painted there on the side of his starfighter.
What a king.
Right,
honestly.
which is something they do in Clone Wars, which came out, years after this
Years
movie.
later, yeah.
Dave Filoni is the man.
It's almost like a lot of love and care went into these movies and TV series.
Almost.
Almost. Okay, so R2 fixed the elevator. It's going up. Anakin's hanging. 2 battle droids are over him.
Right.
He obviously gets back in, but something I thought was really funny is that the battle droids don't back up to safety. they leave their heads sticking out into the elevator and get absolutely destroyed by it.
Yeah, I know I have this note here in a couple scenes, but we really get to see so much more of the battle droid's personality, which reminds me so much more of, again, like I said, I'm going to make so many Clone Wars references this episode. You're going to be so sick of it, you're going to have to watch it. But in Clone Wars, the droids have so much personality because it is a kids animated show, but it makes it so much fun, just like it does in this movie. Whenever the droids have little lines, or when they say excuse me, or they're just goofy.
Right, yeah. There's a lot of character to the droids, and I really enjoyed that they gave more character to the super battle droids, because we didn't really get to see a lot of it in episode 2.
Right, the most we saw of it in episode 2 is whenever that one super battle droid just completely destroys the one battle droid by knocking his head off and shooting for him.
Yeah, I was thinking of that same instant as well.
But the battle droids may be, or the super battle droids may be superior, to the regular battle droids, but they're no match for our friend R2-D2, who in the next scene shoots oil on the 2 super battle droids and then lights them on fire.
I know. All I wrote was R2 is a savage.
I wrote R2 is a savage, or R2, the savage killer.
Great minds. And so, something I see a lot from fans who don't like the prequels is they say that R2 was way more advanced in the prequels and could do a lot more, and they specifically bring up that scene on how he just completely obliterated 2 super battle droids, which, I mean, we've seen clones really struggling to fight. I just kind of look at it as, at this point, or by the time the original trilogy starts, R2-D2 has been around for a while. He might not be running as well. Or maybe he's just a cranky old droid who's letting the youngins handle it.
I think R2 just decides whenever he wants to be a savage killer.
That is true. That is very true.
But you're right. By the time we get the new trilogy, R2 has been around for a while, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like C-3PO where we, see him come to life in episode 1. R2 has been on Padme's ship for who knows how long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure somebody might know. It might be in the EU somewhere, but nowhere that I've seen. Okay,
we gotta talk about the Dooku fight.
We have to talk about the Dooku fight.
We do. Only one of the greatest stage actors, Christopher Lee, who plays Count Dooku, only Dooku could front flip into a fight at like 60, 70 years old, however old Count Dooku is, and pull it off.
Right?
I don't think any other old man could front flip off of a balcony and look as cool as he does.
I completely agree.
I gotta say it again. I don't know if you noticed. I think that's my favorite phrase. There was something about the sounds of this episode, specifically the sounds of that lightsaber duel with Dooku. They sounded so much. They were, but they sounded so much to me like the old movies. Did you get that feel, the way it sounded?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what it was. The way the lightsabers clashed, the ambient sounds around it, it sounded like the old movies to me.
Right. So, obviously they start together, and, I mean, right before the fight starts, Obi-Wan tells Anakin, let's do it together this time, and Anakin says, I was about to say the same thing, as if it wasn't him who rushed in on episode 2.
He is a slow learner.
He is. But at this point, he's been learning for, 13, maybe 14 years? You pick things up eventually. Also, how was Obi-Wan's legs not absolutely crushed?
I have so many things before we even get to that.
Oh, okay. That's my next note. So you just go ahead.
I will. How do you feel about seeing Anakin in almost all black?
Okay, that's actually a really interesting point that I want to talk about later. I don't know exactly in this scene, but I've always thought throughout the entire film that Anakin is only wearing all black, basically.
No, he's wearing dark brown on the bottom, but it seems his leather vest is definitely black.
Yes.
And then I'm pretty sure the shirt they wear under that it's like a robe kind of, you know?
Yeah.
But it's what they wear underneath. I'm pretty sure that's black as well.
I think so. But the robe he's wearing, in darker scenes, it definitely looks black. And he might have had two different robes, so one of them might have been black. And I'll talk about this more later because I think there's some real,
You're talking about the cloaks that they wear?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's some real symbolism behind it. Like I said, I'll get to it later, but I'm pretty sure it's definitely brown in some scenes.
Right.
Again, he could have two robes, one black, one brown, but we'll get to that later.
One of my favorite lines. I have so many favorite. I can't even say that. One of the lines that I really enjoy is Dooku saying, "Good, twice the pride, double the fall."
Such an amazing line.
You can't get much better than that. You can't.
You really can't.
That line gives me the chills every time because I'm just like, again, only Christopher Lee can be on screen for like a total of 2 minutes and be that cool.
Right. We didn't deserve Christopher Lee.
We didn't, but we got him anyways because that's how Star Wars is.
That's how Star Wars is. So, okay, remind me, because it has been a while since I've seen the Clone Wars. Count Dooku and Anakin had several altercations throughout the series, didn't they?
That's correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to double check. Something to remember is, even though, and it makes it look like this in the film when they talk about Anakin says, "I've doubled my powers since the last time we've met." You might think, okay, it's talking about episode 2, but like we've just mentioned, they meet multiple times throughout the Clone Wars.
Yes.
Now, I don't know when the last time they meet is, but that's kind of a big statement. You know, because originally we didn't have the Clone Wars, or at least the 3D animated series, so everyone was thinking, okay, they haven't seen each other in these 3-4 years. But they had. I mean, the last time could have been a year ago compared to 3 years. So my whole point is it's a big statement for Anakin to say his power has doubled.
It is, but you see it a whole lot in this movie. Anakin's powers are completely unhinged at this point.
Oh yeah, he is amazing.
He is just stupid powerful, from the way he fights to just everything about him. His powers really have doubled since the last time we saw him.
Right, in episode 2.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. And I really think that if the events of this film didn't play out, he would have quickly rose to become the most powerful Jedi. I don't think he was quite there yet, but he was definitely close.
I don't know. He's completely insane in this movie. Not just mentally, but physically. This man is crazy.
Right. And so I think it's less maybe on power levels. I think it's more on wisdom and knowledge on how to use his powers to their fullest. Does that make sense?
He's refined is what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. He's much more refined in this movie compared to episode 2.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. My point was that he still has a little refining to go. Like, he has the power. He just still working out how to use it all.
I
Not
think
a
this is
lot.
one of those
I
times
think
we
it's
might have to
close.
disagree or agree to disagree.
And I think, okay, the reason I think this is because of the duel on Mustafar. But we'll get to that later.
There's a whole lot before we get to that.
There's a whole lot, so much.
So yes,
Okay.
I'm not quite sure I understand how Obi didn't get crushed by the platform either. But the imagery in this scene is crazy, and I never really thought about it till we had talked about Duel of the Fates and just that soundtrack and what that song really means. So
Right.
with that in my head, I thought of that whenever Anakin cuts off Dooku's hands at the same time in like a really cool way.
Right.
It's definitely that move that you wonder, like you always wondered watching like Jedi's fight and stuff, like why don't they just cut off their hands? And then you get to see that in this movie and you're like, because it's just too cool, that's why.
It's just too cool.
So
Now,
go
okay.
ahead.
What's your next note?
I am still talking about Anakin.
Okay, cool. I do have something to say before we get to Dooku's demise.
I have things to say about that too, but anyway,
Okay,
so
cool.
he cuts off his hands, he catches the lightsaber in the air, and whenever you think about Duel of the Fates, and then you think of that moment, he's got his blue lightsaber in one hand and Dooku's red in the other, and he's got Palpatine telling him to kill him, and he's having to make a choice. You know, he's standing there like almost literally sweating because he's got to make this, you know, basically good versus evil pick here.
Right.
And I just love that he
also-
has both of those lightsabers in his hand.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'd never really thought about that before. That's a really good point.
I do a lot of thinking.
Good catch. Good catch.
I do a lot of thinking at times.
Also, can we just talk about the just sadness and shock on Dooku's face when Palpatine tells Anakin to kill him?
That was my note as well, because we talked about it a little bit last time. Dooku definitely knows who Sidious is. I've decided that in my head. He knows that
Oh,
Sidious
yeah.
and Palpatine are the same person. And,
Yeah, definitely.
you know, in his head, it's him and Palps together to the end, man. You know, they're buddies. And then Palpatine looks at him straight in the face and he's like, yeah, kill this guy. We don't need him anymore.
Right. And so while Count Dooku was a Dark Lord of the Sith, I really don't think he was ever truly a Sith. He had good intentions. He really was trying to bring about good of the galaxy, and I don't think he was ever fully consumed by the dark side.
I don't
Like,
think Count
obviously-
Dooku was a good person.
No. He was not a good person. He was a bad guy, without a doubt. But I think he did have good intentions, and I don't think he was doing it for the power. I think he was doing it to bring about a better galaxy. Now, that doesn't mean he's right. I just think, you know, we need to also look at the villain's motivations, if that makes sense.
No, I think Dooku was a pawn, like everybody else in Palpatine's
Oh, yeah.
plan. And
No, without a doubt.
he didn't want anything good for the galaxy. Watch Clone Wars. Dooku is selfish. He does everything for himself to literally just get him a better spot somewhere else.
That is true. I was thinking more of like EU book Dooku, but I feel like that is a very different Dooku from Clone Wars, which is canon and EU books are not. Rest in peace, Legends. So you have a very good point. Okay, so obviously Anakin, I have a question for you.
Decapitates him.
He decapitates Dooku. Does this make Anakin a war criminal? He kills.
Are you saying that that there's a Star Wars Geneva Convention and Anakin just broke it? Is that what you're trying to ask me, sir?
Obviously, I don't think they have. Well, they must have some form of a Geneva Convention. Obviously, it would probably look different from ours, but let's just say, hypothetically, they were by using our standards of war. Would that make him a war criminal for killing Dooku?
I don't know, because I mean, wouldn't Dooku be a war criminal then? Because of he captured 3 people and sent them to die in an arena in the second episode?
Okay, yes, but we've already established that he's not the best person.
I love Anakin, so I'm gonna say no.
Okay, so a very, very important line that will come up again later in the film is Palpatine tells Anakin after he's saying, I shouldn't have done that, that's not the Jedi way. That's not the Jedi what? That is not the Jedi way. Yes. He says he was too dangerous to be kept alive, which is very, very important for later.
You just blew my mind. You just blew my mind, Elijah.
Did I?
You did. I don't think it... In all my years of watching this movie, I don't think I ever noticed that.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day, people.
You learn something new every day.
So...
Again, so we'll...
Go ahead.
We'll talk about why that line's important later. But
it is.
For our
it's
listeners,
so important.
Just keep that in mind.
Yes. So... We've talked about this before off the podcast, just in our normal lives, talking about Star Wars, because that's what we do. That you can see Dooku's head pop off in the next shot.
Right.
I never looked. Dooku's hands are laying on the ground, too.
Attention to detail.
Did you see the hands?
I have never seen the hands, but I don't think I've ever looked for the hands. Now, I did see Snoke's hands, but we'll get to that later.
I don't even care about Snoke, but...
Me too.
Yeah, you see his hands, and I think if it wasn't for me writing notes while I was watching, I would have never saw his hands, because I was writing, and out of the corner of my eye I looked up and I was like, what is that on the ground? And it's Dooku's hands.
Gotta see them hands.
It makes sense though, but then again, I think I always look for the head falling off, because it's only in the corner there. Yeah, they would be.
So much attention to detail. It's almost like a lot of love and care went into these films.
It did. It's my love and care. It's everyone's.
Okay, so I've got another really important line.
Is it about Palpatine trying to leave Obi-Wan?
Yes.
That would have been so good for his plan, though, too. Sorry to interrupt, but that would have been great for his plan if Obi-Wan would have just died in the wreck.
Right?
Continue, my friend.
That's a really good point. I think that would have been great for his plan, but I don't know if things would have happened as quickly.
I think I'm the exact opposite. I think Anakin would have fallen 2 times as fast if Obi-Wan wasn't around.
Yeah, I'm really torn, because if he had died, I mean, Anakin would have been sent into
just a complete downward spiral.
Right, he would have went into a period of grief. And so it either would have quickened his descent into the dark side, or he might have taken some time away to grieve, which would have meant time away from Palpatine.
I don't think Palpatine would have ever let him get that far away from him, though.
That's a really good
Not
point.
with knowing
And,
how good the opportunity it would have been to take advantage of him at that moment.
yeah, that is true. And with him having the dreams of Padme dying, which we'll get to soon. Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, so Palpatine tells Anakin to leave him, and Anakin tells him no. His fate will be the same as ours. And all three of them died on a Death Star.
They did.
What amazing foreshadowing. I mean, obviously they already knew. But if you're watching it for the first time 1 to 9, that is really good foreshadowing.
It is. There's so many cool lines in this movie.
Yeah. Also, we're not even off the ship, and we are 50 minutes into this podcast.
A lot happens in the first 12 minutes of this movie,
I know,
okay?
so much happens. It's so good.
So, to get us along, they're trying to escape. They're in the elevator. Obi-Wan wakes up. They're sliding down the elevator. I want to know what is inside a Jedi's tool belt, because they pull the, what's it called?
The grappling hook?
The grappling hook. Thank you. They just pull the grappling hook out of their belts, and that's what saves them. I have to know what is inside a Jedi's tool belt, because obviously everything. We know they have
Okay.
rebreathers, and now we know that they have grappling hooks.
Hear me out. Space Wizard Batman.
Batman's not as cool as Obi-Wan.
That is true. I completely agree. And now we're going to get canceled by the DC fans. We still love Batman. Batman.
The Batman.
Well, I said Batman for the whole, Jedi Order. It confused me. We still love Batman, but the Jedi
have to
are
get the
cooler.
Batman.
Let's just be honest. Okay, so they get out. Okay, they're falling, basically. Can we just talk about the, not once, but twice, that Palpatine just, grabs on to Anakin's legs for safety, which, I mean, obviously, he would do that. He's trying not to fall to his death. I just thought it was funny. First, when they're initially falling, he grabs his legs, and then when they're free falling, they do the grappling hook to safety, he grabs his leg again.
Well, I mean, Palpatine could save himself, but he's got to keep that ruse that he's...
Right, exactly.
He's just a poor, defenseless chancellor.
I just thought it was funny. It reminded me of a child, the way he, grabbed his leg.
Right.
Which, just to go with what you're talking about, the defenseless chancellor.
Like I said, the great lines in this movie never cease to stop, especially not 20 minutes into it. They get caught in the ray shields.
Right.
Anakin explains his whole, well, R2's gonna come, it'll be fine, we'll get out of this just like we always do. We just have to be patient, Master.
Right.
R2
And
comes, Obi-Wan, what's your plan B?
I know, it's so funny. I also wanted to point out, we really get to see a lot of growth from Anakin in just that line where he says, let's be patient.
Right.
Because episode 2 Anakin would have pulled out his lightsaber and tried to break through the ray shield. No question.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay,
Just a
so...
quick costume thing. We get to see Grievous, they're brought in and everything. I really love the details of the outside of Grievous's cloak, but also the inside, how he has the little pockets for the lightsabers, and then just the diamond stitching that he has running through it on the inside that's red.
Yeah, and
I love that.
I think it's in Utapau,
Utapau?
but it might be Utapau, sorry. It might be at this moment. You could probably see it in this moment as well. As he's breathing, right around right next to his neck by his collarbone, you can actually see it almost looks like hearts. I mean, they're not hearts, but that's what it reminded me of. Like, it's just muscle. I think all the skin is actually gone.
Yeah, it's probably some synthetic, like, tubing or something to act as his lungs. Because
I'm sure most people already know, but just to clarify for anyone who doesn't, General Grievous is a cyborg. So he was an alien. I can't remember his species name.
He was a Kaleesh.
A Kaleesh. Most of his body's been replaced by robotic parts, but there are still some alien parts to him.
I think the only parts that survived were his major organs and obviously, like, his head.
Eyes. Yeah.
That's about it. Everything else blew up.
So before we move too much further, I love the battle droid that takes their lightsabers because he, tells Obi-Wan, "Excuse me," as he's walking by so politely.
Right.
And then he hands Grievous the lightsabers. Grievous doesn't say anything, and the droid's just like, "You're welcome," and then walks away.
Right. That's straight Clone Wars stuff right there. That is Dave Filoni watching these movies with so much care and carefulness and being like, you know, it'd be great, more of this.
More of this, yeah. I love it so much.
Obi-Wan fighting the Magna Guard, chopping off his head. The Magna Guard obviously keeps going, so he has to fight it more. And he finally, destroys it, and it just crumbles into a pile of stuff. But the look of disbelief on his face whenever he has to turn back around, and he's like...
and it's still fighting.
He's like, I cut its head off. This isn't how these things work. What is this?
Oof, if only Dooku worked like that.
If only.
Or Jango Fett.
It doesn't get more gangster than General Grievous grabbing the Electro Staff, blowing out the window of his own command ship, just to make an escape. It doesn't get more gangster than that. I'm sorry.
I was going to say what a man, but what a cyborg.
What a cyborg. Just blowing out his own windows.
Yeah. Okay, I have another note here that says R2 saving them again. But I can't remember what happens. What did R2D... Oh, I remember.
Distraction?
Right. He causes the distraction for Obi-Wan and Anakin to break free and get their lightsabers back. I don't think anyone would be around without R2. Let's just be honest.
He is the glue that keeps the main characters alive.
Like, think about it. If he didn't save them on episode 1... there would be no Palpatine knew where Anakin was. He would have got around to it eventually, but things would be drastically different because Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon would have been dead. Padme would have been dead. We wouldn't have had a Luke or Leia.
A lot of things wouldn't have happened. But the Force willed it.
The Force willed it.
Yes. Obi-Wan is far and away my favorite character in this movie, at least. From we're flying half a ship, or don't worry, we're still flying half a ship.
Right.
And then ending that scene with another happy landing.
Hey, they survived. They accomplished their mission.
But just through that one line there at the end, obviously this isn't the first time this has happened, or they've been in this kind of situation.
Again, watch the Clone Wars.
Oh yeah. We're back on the city of Coruscant.
We're finally on land.
We're out of space. We're on land once again.
20 minutes into the movie, 60 minutes into the podcast, We are on land.
We're on land, finally. So, I love the little save count game that Obi-Wan and Anakin have between them. That line where he mentions, not just for saving your skin for the 10th time. And Obi-Wan says, no, this is the 9th. That business on Cato Nemoidia doesn't count. And leaves. I love that little insight into their relationship that we didn't have before things like Clone Wars and stuff like that came out.
Right. And so something I was wanting to talk about is another complaint I hear about the prequel trilogies is that we don't get to see enough of Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship, and they go from this like bickering relationship, and the next thing you know, they're like best friends, they're brothers. I completely disagree. Like we have to remember that this is a 13 to 14 year friendship that they've been having, and yes, we may not have gotten to see all of that. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened. So, even with, obviously the Clone Wars adds a lot to that, but even without it, I think Episode 3 does just an amazing job with lines like that, showing the bond between the two of them.
Right, but I think people that say things like that don't have siblings.
Yeah.
Especially older siblings, because you have siblings and, some of them are quite a bit older than you, just like my brother's a bit older than me. So when I think about our relationship as brothers, whenever we were kids, we didn't like each other. I was his annoying little brother, and he didn't want me hanging around him, and I always wanted to hang around with him. And now, we're both adults. We're into more of the same stuff. We relate to more things now because we both had, experiences and grown up and done different things. I'm sure it's the same way with you and your siblings.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt.
So that's my answer to the whole relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin thing. That's how I solve it in my brain.
Yeah. Okay, so we get our great "I'm not brave enough for politics" line.
Right.
Just another fantastic Obi-Wan quip.
The dialogue in this movie is, for someone that didn't like all of the more Shakespearean stuff in episode 1 and 2, this is your episode, because this is so much more just a lot of things that happen in this movie are more felt than heard.
Yeah, there's a lot more emotion behind it.
Right.
But in a good way, not in an over dramatic kind of a way.
I don't know. This movie can be a bit over dramatic.
Okay.
And that's just how I like it.
It can, but definitely not as much as the other two. Or at least it's done better, I guess, if that makes sense.
Maybe not better, different.
I agree.
Surprise, you're a father, Anakin.
Surprise, you're a father. Can we just talk about the, joy on this man's face? And I love the fact that he doesn't respond right away, and it leaves Padme almost questioning, oh no, is he not going to be happy? And then he comes in with that, "This is the happiest day of my life."
Right? That was a real reaction.
Yeah. I would probably be speechless too.
I know I would be, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Grievous lands on Utapau.
Right.
Immediately reports to Palpatine. And Palpatine is just Dooku had to die. Not a big loss. Whatever.
Yeah, Palpatine never... Well, I don't think Palpatine ever cared about anyone. I was going to say he never cared about Dooku, but...
No, he didn't care about anyone. It was just another cog in the machine for him. however he needed to get to his next goal, that's what he was going to do.
Yeah.
So now we're on the balcony again. Padme's looking stunning as ever. She has her Japor snippet necklace on.
Mm-hmm. This is after the nightmare, right? Or before they fall asleep?
It's before they fall asleep. Padme's looking stunning as ever. Boy, does she look good.
You will never stop loving her.
Never. Never.
Don't let Anakin hear you say that.
And whatever. He's a chump. He's a chump.
Oh, HouseDog, you think if Anakin walked through your door right now and said, "Fight me for Padme," which
only if it was episode 1 Anakin.
Oh, okay. I just need to clarify. Women are not objects.
That's right. I said it. I have no problem beating a 9-year-old child. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Well, okay.
I guess Anakin and I have a lot more in common than I thought.
I was about to say the same thing. Oh my gosh.
So, we pointed out last episode about Anakin's hand, but we see it in a lot greater detail in this one. Like you said, whenever he has a dream, he wakes up, and you see how his arm, unlike Luke's that we see later in the films, is he does have a prosthetic, but compared to Luke's, it's basically unfinished.
Right. It is. The technology just isn't as advanced. I mean, obviously, leagues more advanced than anything we have, but, you know, it gets a little better in the next 20 years.
It does. One of my favorite settings in this movie is it's not really a courtyard, but the different outside area that Padme has at her apartment.
Right.
I love that setting. There's so much happening in the background pointing in towards the apartment that if you go back and rewatch, you can see down this long hallway, there's a lot of stuff. It's just really beautiful. I love that that setting. But just to move us along here, if you don't have anything else to say.
I had one last thing to say about the dreams. I do think they're a little different, and we talked about it a little bit last time. When he was having dreams of his mother, I think they were less about... I think they weren't dreams of the future. I think they were his mother actually reaching out through the Force and kind of unknowingly showing her son what she was going through. On the other hand, though, obviously Padme isn't giving birth and dying at that moment. I think those are visions of the future, and I think those might have been a little bit... I think that might have been a little bit of Palpatine's doing.
You think his premonitions were Palpatine? Or at least
I don't know
influencing?
Yeah, influencing, I would say. I'm not sure if I would say like 100%, but he definitely has had a part in it. Well, maybe not definitely, but in my mind, that's how I see it.
That's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
And we're chock full of those.
I got a couple more as we continue through.
Right. Anakin, after his dreams, goes to see the wisest guy he knows, Master Yoda. I don't think Anakin went there for answers. I think he went there for emotional support.
I think so. Which I think is really funny because, well, not funny, but sad almost, is that Padme suggested going to Obi-Wan, and Anakin said no. And so I think it's just a little sad that if he had gone to Obi-Wan, he would have gotten support compared to what he got from Yoda.
Do you think he would have gotten emotional support? Because a lot of time, Obi-Wan's allegiances override his feelings.
That is true, and I think if we didn't have the Clone Wars, I would agree with you. But we did get the Clone Wars, and we got one of the saddest deaths of all time.
Don't ruin things. Don't make me relive things.
So, for those of you who don't know, Obi-Wan was in love with a woman.
Don't do it.
Named...
Leave it be. Leave it be. Let people find out on their own.
I got to.
No, you don't.
Okay, I won't say what happened to her. If you want to find out, go watch the Clone Wars. But he was in love with her, and there's a moment that they're talking, and he tells her, "I would have left the Jedi Order for you." And so I really think that with what happened to her, if Anakin had told Obi-Wan what was going on, I think he would have helped Anakin peacefully leave the Order and start his own start his family, because that's something that Obi-Wan never got to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think he would have given him a Master Yoda answer.
Ooh, okay. Even if he didn't give him the, "Hey, let me help you out" answer, I don't think he would have been as cold as Master Yoda.
I don't think Master Yoda was cold. I just think he's had these ideals for so long. It's like Obi-Wan. It's just what they believe, so it's the only way they know how to feel at this point.
True. But again, Obi-Wan told Satine, "I would have left the Order
Enough
for you."
about Satine.
If I have to suffer, you have to suffer.
Well, at least you're talking about Clone Wars, because that brings us to our next scene as well. Master Vaz is mentioned in the briefings that Anakin misses while he's talking to Yoda.
Right.
Who is Quinlan Vos, who shows up in Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So another Clone Wars reference.
Nice. Okay, so one last thing about the Yoda scene. Two things. I just think it's so sad for Anakin. Like, obviously, because with the Jedi's beliefs, Yoda gave him the right answer.
He did, 100%.
But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt Anakin.
Oh, without a doubt. I don't think he necessarily wants the answer on how to save her. I just think he wants an answer on, how do I deal with this?
Yeah, he really looked up to Yoda. Like, even though Yoda wasn't his master, he saw Yoda in a very good light. He trusted him.
He does.
And, they said it in episode 2, Yoda was the wisest Jedi. And, we can debate if he... We can debate if he was really the wisest Jedi, but in Obi-Wan and Anakin's eyes, he was to them.
I don't know. But I'm glad you say that about everything that happens between Yoda and Anakin, because then we get Anakin and Palpatine together. And immediately Palpatine calls him son.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I've recommended you to be a master. He tells him, I want you to be the eyes, ears, and, everything for the Republic. He basically wants Anakin to be his enforcer.
Right.
Is all it boils down to. He just wants Anakin to be his muscle.
Exactly. But to Anakin, he sees that somebody believes in me, and he's getting a chance to be on the council.
Not just be on the council, but a master.
Right.
Which Palpatine's plan, like we said millions of times before in other episodes, is ingenious. He knows that they won't make Anakin a master. So he knows that whenever he goes up for the appointment, he's going to get shot down.
Which is going to make him angry and sad.
Which is going to make him angry and sad and keep him closer to Palpatine and pulling farther and farther away from the Jedi, like he's done since episode 2 and before things that we see happen in episode 2.
Right. Literally, my next note says, I love this film so much. Anakin's fall was so masterfully planned.
It was.
And it just makes me sad. So sad, because really, Anakin has just been a pawn his entire life.
Without ever knowing it.
Exactly.
So, he's made onto the council, but not a master.
Right.
The looks that Obi-Wan gives Anakin in that meeting are priceless.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, dude, just sit down. Shut up. Quit talking. We'll deal with it later.
Right. Which I really wanted to point out is, yes, Anakin kind of lets his anger get out of control, but he ends it by asking for forgiveness. Again, something I think that really points to how much he's matured since episode 2. I don't think episode 2 Anakin would have stopped. He would have just kept arguing with it until he was made to stop.
I completely agree.
Which just breaks my heart, because he was so close to being a master. But we'll talk about that more later.
He was very close. So here, this is what I'm talking about, that struggle that I mentioned earlier with Obi-Wan, of where his allegiances ruin, they get in the way of his and Anakin's relationship, because this is where obviously all the other masters had talked about it before Anakin got there, but they give him the assignment to spy on Chancellor Palpatine, and of course they give it to Obi-Wan because, well, who else does Anakin trust the most besides Palpatine?
Right.
Of course, Obi-Wan.
Right.
And
which is... Go ahead.
It's terrible watching him do it, because they have their whole argument, and it ends with Anakin saying, I can't believe you would ask me to do this. And Obi-Wan says, it's not me, the council's asking you. Obi-Wan wants a way out. But because of his belief and allegiances, the only excuse he can find is that it's not just me, it's the whole council doing it.
Right. I mean, he clearly states it when the conversation first starts. I don't remember exactly what he says, but he says, I don't want to put you in this position.
Right.
Which, I think I've got a point that kind of connects to that. Do you have anything else to say on that?
No, I'm done with that one.
Okay. So then it cuts to Yoda, Mace Windu, and Obi-Wan, and they're in a ship, and they're flying.
Yes.
And Mace Windu says, I don't think Anakin can handle the new assignment. And Obi-Wan has already made it clear that he didn't want to put Anakin in that position. So I actually find it very surprising that Anakin was actually given the position, or got put in that position, because, I mean, Mace Windu is the, second highest ranked master?
Yes, he's second in command to Yoda.
Right, so him, I mean, that had to have been a long meeting. Obviously, we see later that they do a majority vote, and that's how they run things. Maybe not always, but I really think Mace Windu would have fought that, and Obi-Wan would have been right there with him fighting it. And obviously, if Yoda wanted it, he's the Grand Master. That's how things would have played out, but I don't know. It surprised me. Just the fact that he got that position with two, I mean, less Obi-Wan, but as vocal as Mace Windu is, that Anakin actually got that position.
I mean, he's the only one that could have done it. There's nobody else closer to the Chancellor than him, and for good reason, because it's all part of Palpatine's plan.
It's all part of his plan, and the Jedi are blind.
They are. They're very blind. So, are you done there?
I've got another note there, but
No, please do.
do you have anything else?
I don't have anything else for that scene.
So then Obi-Wan, he responds to Mace Windu basically saying, but Anakin he's the chosen one, isn't he? And Yoda gives us the great line of a prophecy. What's he say?
The prophecy misread could have been.
Yeah, which leads to the hint that maybe it meant that the Jedi were actually going to be the ones to be destroyed. Now, I personally think the prophecy wanted both sides to be destroyed, but again, that still plays into they read the prophecy wrong.
I think the prophecy's unreadable.
That's a good
I think
theory.
the prophecy is just that. It's just a prophecy.
Interesting.
You know, a prophecy, in my opinion, is a lot like a secret. If you know it and nobody else knows it, right?
Uh-huh.
Then the only way for it to be true is if you tell someone and then it happens.
Interesting.
Right? And they find out about it. So then everybody knows, right?
Right.
So this whole grand prophecy, I think it became a self-fulfilling prophecy because everybody knew about it. Everybody expected it.
Okay, that's a really good theory.
We can talk about the prophecy another time, though.
Yeah, I feel like we could make that its own episode because I've got a lot to say, but we should probably move forward.
We definitely should. Padme figures out the plot of everything before everyone else does. She is the most perceptive character out of anyone in this movie.
Right, which really bothers me because some people, not all, but I have seen several people say that Padme is basically a useless character who doesn't do anything. But as you say, she literally figures it all out.
Before everyone.
Yeah.
I love Padme. Another reason why I love Padme. She's the best, Elijah. The best!
Oh my gosh.
I would have made her a lot cooler necklace than a stupid Japor snippet.
Would 9-year-old you have made a much cooler necklace?
Bring 9-year-old Anakin in here now. It's time to settle this on the streets.
Jake Lloyd's been through enough.
I don't care.
Okay, but so for our audience, he's specifically talking about the line where Padme says, have you ever thought that maybe we're on the wrong side?
Right. She's figured it out before everyone. Like I said, it's quite literally amazing.
Too bad she couldn't convince him.
It's too bad.
Okay. So, I don't have anything till the theater scene.
Really?
Yeah.
I have a couple points.
Bring them on.
They're just quick. We don't have to spend a lot of time on them. So we see that Padme is constantly having to pull Anakin back from his thoughts and whatever's going on in his head. That's just something I noticed. And oh no! Now I'm at the theater scene.
Okay, great.
I had one note.
That's okay.
So Palpatine immediately says, "We found Grievous. You should definitely be the guy to do it." Planting another one of those seeds that he knows isn't going to happen, but it's another great way to pull Anakin in that much deeper and away from the Jedi.
Right. I literally wrote down, ooh, Palp stroking Anakin's ego.
Palpatine for Life Coach of the Year.
Palpatine for Evil Life Coach of the Year.
Also, I'm convinced that Palpatine has bugged every room that Anakin ever goes in or Anakin will ever be in because he knows everything. He knows that the Jedi have asked him to spy on him.
Okay, so I think two things to that. I think one, I think you're right. He does have bugs and spies everywhere. Two, I think he's using the Force to spy on the Jedi and especially spy on Anakin.
Right.
We move on to the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
We do, but I love how Palpatine has a line right before he gets into the story. He said, "Good is a point of view."
Which is very important later.
Point of view is always important in Star Wars.
Yes. Yeah. So, obviously, we've all heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Something I wanted to talk about is I'm still really mad. I mean, I kind of understand why they did it, but I'm still mad that Disney changed the fact that originally it was Plagueis who created Anakin, and now they changed it to where Palpatine was the one who did it. I get it. It makes him more of an overarching villain and threat. But in the original, the Legacy, with Plagueis doing it, that's basically Palpatine telling Anakin, like, hey, this is kind of the story of your dad. Like, obviously it's not his dad, but, like, this is how you were created. He was powerful enough. He could manipulate the midichlorians enough to create life.
Right.
Which, again, technically, Palpatine now does the exact same thing. But I just think it held a lot of weight for that scene. Because even though Anakin didn't know it, he was learning about his origin.
Right. I love how you can just look at Anakin's face while Palpatine's telling him the story, and you can tell he's just so, and like he's got him hook, line, and sinker right then.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we didn't have him in his pocket before, boy, has he got him now.
Which is all because of his love for Padme. Which, I mean, we've talked about it before, but we are really going to talk about it a lot this second half of the film. He loves his wife, and everything that happens from this point on is him trying to save her.
Right. Well, I mean, Anakin's life story is trying to save someone.
Poor Anakin.
Palpatine's smiling whenever he says, you know, that Darth Plagueis taught his apprentice everything, and then his apprentice killed him. And the smile he has whenever he says that line is just, it is the chef's kiss of that wink to fans.
Right. I mean, I didn't know at first when I first watched it. I mean, I figured, but I didn't know for sure because Palpatine was Plagueis' apprentice. He was the one who killed Plagueis, and I still think it's funny that Palpatine, you know, it's said very frequently throughout the entire Star Wars community, maybe not the entire, but a lot of people feel as though Palpatine is the most powerful Sith that we've ever seen. But he couldn't kill Plagueis in a fight. He killed him in his sleep.
Right. Because he's smart.
He is smart. No, completely. He's a genius. But Plagueis was just crazy powerful.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. So, non-dialogue point here. The difference between saying Kashyyyk for the first time, we get that great flyover view of like the mountains and trees and everything, and then it flashes back to Coruscant again, and just the sheer difference. They're both huge in scale, but they're entirely different because of even though they're both large, I'm rambling here. They're both large, but Kashyyyk is breathtaking, even though it's so minimalistic compared to the high rises of Coruscant. There we go. That's what I wanted to say. I couldn't quite figure it out, but there we go.
It's a contrast between the two.
Yes.
So next we get Anakin and Padme.
Chewie.
Do we? Not.
Yeah.
Are we in Kashyyyk yet? Don't they go to Kashyyyk after? Okay, what happens here at Kashyyyk?
Nothing. Yoda just goes there, and he meets up with Tarful and Chewie.
Got it. Okay. You know what? I was getting confused on the council meetings on which happened when, so that's why I was a little confused. But yes, shout out to Chewie.
And then the battle starts, and we get the sweet Wookiee Tarzan yell.
The Wookiee Tarzan yell.
Yep. And then the meeting happens.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry. I think you're a little off on your timeline.
Which meeting are you talking about, sir?
Because it's the meeting where Anakin tells them... Oh, man. No, I think you're right. Isn't it the meeting where Anakin tells them that Grievous is in Utapau? Isn't that where Yoda decides to go to Kashyyyk?
That's already happened.
Dang it. I am a fool. Anyway.
Yeah, because the story happens. The Darth Plagueis happens. The meeting happens. Then we're on Kashyyyk.
Wait. Kashyyyk, the meeting.
Whenever I brought up the scenery of Kashyyyk and Coruscant.
Right.
That's whenever the meeting happens.
Right. So
that's whenever
the
it's
meeting,
decided that Obi-Wan will go instead of Anakin.
Right. Cool. Okay.
But Yoda's already on Kashyyyk.
Got it. Which, I mean, we've talked about a little bit. Just how crushing it is for Anakin not to be selected for this mission. Which partly is because, I mean, obviously Obi-Wan is more experienced, but also they literally just gave him a mission to spy on the Chancellor.
But the whole idea was to keep Anakin there so they could figure out what the Chancellor is up to.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
But Palpatine knew he wouldn't be selected for the mission because he knew that the Jedi would be dumb enough to keep him there to drive that wedge in between them.
Right. I do think it's a little strange that they don't send multiple Jedi after Grievous. I mean, we see throughout both Clone Wars series that Grievous kills a lot of Jedi.
But Obi-Wan is the man.
Obi-Wan is the man. If they were to send just one Jedi, it would be Obi-Wan.
It would be. So the battle on Kashyyyk is happening.
Right.
And we get the last goodbye of
Obi-Wan.
Anakin and Obi-Wan as master and apprentice. And, you know, they're saying their goodbyes, and the line that sticks out to me is because we just had the Darth Plagueis story, and where Obi-Wan says, "I've taught you everything that I know." And Anakin has this look on his face of, in my head, he's like, oh man, I just heard the story of this guy who he was a master and he had an apprentice and he taught him everything he knew and then he killed him.
I never thought about that. Interesting.
Right. If he's been told the story of how to save people that he loves, and then he has his master, his brother, tell him, Anakin, you're a stronger and wiser Jedi than I could ever hope to be. Oh, and by the way, I have nothing else to teach you at this point. You're literally reaching the height that I'm at.
Right. And that's partly what I was talking about earlier, is while I feel like Anakin is there, I think he has a lot, like he literally, like he is amazing. He is wise, he is powerful, but I think there was a lot more room for him to grow and to become stronger. I don't while Obi-Wan might have been at the peak of his power, I don't think Anakin was yet.
Right. Is that everything you have to say about The Last Goodbye?
Oh, it just breaks my heart. Every time I watch it, it just makes me so sad because it really is just friendly. They are brothers.
No, you see the love between the two that they have.
There's so much love. At this moment, I have no doubt that they would die for each other.
Oh, without a doubt.
And then the next time they see each other, it's quite literally the opposite.
Well, much like that was the last goodbye for Anakin and Obi-Wan, I'm sad to say this is the last goodbye for our listeners. For this episode. Right now
Yes.
we're about halfway through the movie, and, well, this is already one long episode. So if you'd like to continue the story, there will be a part 2. Elijah, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and how to reach us?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on YouTube or TikTok. If you search MotherGoose27 on either or, you can find me there. And if you want to find any of my other social medias, my TikTok, I'm sorry, I already said that, my Twitter, my Instagram, my Discord, or my subreddit, all of those can be found on my About page on my YouTube channel. And if you want to reach out to us, if you have any Star Wars related questions, you can email us at animalsquadron@gmail.com. One more time, that is animalsquadron@gmail.com. HouseDog, you want to tell them about our Instagram?
We have an Instagram. It's called Animal Squadron Podcast. Give us a follow. That's all I have to say about that one.
That works. Thank you guys once again so much for listening. We really appreciate each and every one of you. For Animal Squadron, this has been Mother Goose.
And HouseDog.
We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everybody.